Hey everybody, my name's Chris from chrisandmarycoast.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you how you can use stories to learn English. Learning a new language can be a challenging and rewarding experience, and one of the best ways to do this is to immerse yourself in the language. And a great strategy for immersing yourself in the language is learning stories from that language, or at least learning stories in that language. In this video, I'm going to give you 8 tips for how you can improve your English using stories, and then I'm going to give you a story that you can practice with right now at the end of this video. After that, I'm also going to tell you how you can find the target vocabulary from that story. So when you read a story, you want to take out the important words and phrases and you want to learn something new. So I'm going to tell you how you can do that first, and then I'm going to give you an example that you can learn from right now. So subscribe to this channel right now and watch until the end of this video to get all of those resources. Tip number 1 for using stories to learn English is find a story that interests you. A lot of times people think that they have to read a certain type of book or watch a certain type of film in order for them to learn English. And that's not always true. It's best to start with something that you already like, because if you like it, it's going to make it much easier for you to engage with the story. It's going to be much easier for you to go from beginning until end, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to remember things that you can apply to your real life. Really, the goal is remembering what you learn or what you see in the story. And the easiest way to do that is if you like it. If you think that it's useful to you and you think that it's smart or it's interesting, then you're going to be able to remember it much easier than if it's just something that you feel like you have to learn. In my example, I really don't like learning about chemistry and biology, so it's difficult for me to remember those things. When I learn about people and geography and history and sociology and psychology, I really like those things, and that is easier for me to remember. So you want to look for stories that align or that follow your interests and your hobbies. If you really like sports, it's probably a good idea to read or watch stories that are about sports. If you don't like sports, like me, then that's probably not a good idea. You're not so interested to read and watch and listen to stories that are about sports for a long time. And it might be difficult for you to apply that to your real life if that's not part of your life, right? If that's not something that you're already interested in. So find something that you're interested in, that you already like, and that will help to keep your attention, and then that'll help you to remember things better and longer. Tip number 2 is start with a story that's at your level. This is so important, and this is a mistake that I see a lot of people make. Instead of starting with a story that's at a low level, which might actually be their level, they try to go for the highest level story they can find. Maybe this has happened to you. Maybe you've started watching the news on TV, and you say, "Oh my God, I can't understand anything that they're saying." Well, that's because the news is at a very, very high level. Sometimes they use words that most native speakers don't understand. And that means it's going to be very difficult for you to, first of all, understand what they're talking about, but then second of all, to remember anything from there. And learning really happens when you remember what is taught to you, or remember the things that you hear and you see. So you're not going to learn very much if you listen to, read, or watch stories that are at a very, very high level if you're not also at that high level. And this is where it's really important to be honest with yourself. Don't just say that you have a high level because you want to have a high level. Instead, you need to be honest about where you are in your English language journey. Some people are at a beginner level. Beginner means that you only know a few words or phrases, you only know some basic rules, and if you're at a beginner level, it's going to be difficult to read a whole book or watch a whole film. Instead, you need to find special stories that are written for beginners. And you can find them in English language textbooks, books that teach you the English language, and you can also find special books that are called graded readers that are written at a specific level. Now, if you're really a beginner, then you probably probably don't understand a lot of the things that I'm saying in this video, because these videos are made at an intermediate level. So you need to be at least pre-intermediate to get a lot of use from the videos that I make. And even if you're at an advanced level, some of the topics that we focus on are more advanced, so it will help you there. I really focus on pre-intermediate to advanced, and then we have programs that go from advanced to proficiency and using English to advance your career and to achieve big goals. And I'm explaining those different levels just because sometimes people come to me and they say that they're a beginner, but they're really not. So if you understand what I'm saying in this video specifically, then you're definitely not a beginner, you're a little higher at least. And then on the other side, sometimes people come to me and they say that they're advanced, but they're really not, because they don't understand some of the aspects of the language that are important at a high level. And you know what, we could talk about level forever, but the important thing to know is that when you're learning through stories, you need to choose a story that's at the right level. And that means that you understand about 90% of the words and phrases that are on each page, or in each minute of the film, or in each minute of the audio book or audio file that you're listening to. So what you can do is, if you're reading a book, you open a book to any random page and you try to read through that one page, and you honestly tell yourself if you know 90% of the words or not. If you're constantly looking up new words in the dictionary and you constantly are thinking, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? That's not an effective way to learn. You need to know at least 90% of what's there so that you can learn the 10%. If there's more than 10%, then the amount that you're really going to learn decreases significantly. And that means that you actually won't be learning. It'll just be a stressful exercise and you're not gonna like it. So you need to find that balance, because if you choose a story that's too easy for you, you might feel great that you understand everything, but you're not going to learn a lot. And if you choose something that's too hard for you, then it's going to be a struggle and you're not going to enjoy it and you might give up. Tip number 3 for using stories to learn English is to use language learning resources like dictionaries, translators, and learning apps. And a lot of people think that you shouldn't use these when you're reading or watching, but I think the complete opposite. It's important to use these things. They think if they're using a translator, it means that they really don't understand anything, but that's not true. A translator can help you clarify what something means. And that's really what you're trying to do when you're reading, listening to, or watching a story. You're trying to understand things better and then remember them by applying them to something in your life, or by telling yourself, oh wow, that's cool, that's interesting, and then that will stick in your brain because you might want to share that with someone else, and therefore you must remember it. So applying it to your life or saving it for later so that you can use it and actually using it, that's the best way to remember new information. Not just languages, but any information. And that means any resources that help you do that help you remember and understand, are going to be very, very useful, and they're good to use when you're learning through stories. Sometimes you see a word and you think you know what it means. Maybe you know what it means in a different context or a different situation. You've learned that word before. Or maybe you are guessing what the word means and you're 90% sure that you know what it means, but not 100% sure. Well, that's a great time to use a dictionary or use a translator and to become 100% completely clear on what it means and why it's used in this situation or this phrase. And that's why stories are so cool, because you might see words that you already know, but used in a different way. And this allows you to understand the full meaning of the word or the phrase. Tip number 4 is take breaks and review what you've already learned. So many people think they just have to keep going and going and going until the end of the story, especially if they're watching a film. And that's not true. You don't have to just press play and then keep watching until the end. Instead, what you can do is you take notes. You should be doing this anyways if you're learning from a story, whether it's a book or an audio file or a film or anything. You should be taking notes. After you've taken those notes, you need to pause the film, pause the audio, close the book, review what you've written down in your notes, and make sure that you remember what it means. Because if you never take the time to review your notes, then your notes really don't mean anything. Sure, the act of taking notes helps you remember things because you're involving a new sense, right? You're using your tactile sense to write it down, and that helps to incorporate different parts of your brain, helps you remember things better, but you need to take a break from all of these inputs, from all of this new information coming at you, and then just review the things that you've already tried to put in your brain. If you try to put too much there, it's going to be an overload and you're not going to be able to remember all of it. And this comes down to another principle of learning and remembering information, which is called chunking. We need to have small chunks of information and work on those small pieces. And we don't want to have just one big film, book, or 2-hour audio story that we try to learn. That's going to be too much for us to handle at one time. You know, even native speakers can't handle that a lot of times. So don't be afraid to just stop what you're doing, to just pause the video, to just pause the audio, to just close the book and to review what you've already learned, and then to take a break and do something else, and then come back to this later. Maybe later in that same day, you know, a few hours later, or maybe the next day. It's okay to watch a film over a 2-week period and to split it into 14 chunks. That's absolutely okay. Nobody is going to judge you, and it doesn't matter to anyone but you. You're the only one it matters to. If you understand it, if you're learning from it, then it doesn't matter how many pieces you break it into. What's important is that you actually took something from it and now you can use it. And using it is part of tip number 5, which is practice speaking and practice writing. I know from personal experience that when I hear, watch, or read a story, it really helps me remember it if I know that I have to tell it to someone else. If I know that I'm going to later need to describe this story to someone, maybe in speech when we meet in person, or maybe I'm going to need to describe it to someone later by writing it, maybe through a text message or through some kind of online message, or maybe in an email, or maybe by writing some kind of report or overview about the story. I'm going to need to use it in a future situation, and that allows me to remember it much, much better and clearer. If I don't think that I'm going to use the information that I get from the story in a future situation, and my brain isn't going to try so hard to remember it. Also, what I've learned is that by preparing to speak about or to write about this story in the future, I get to focus on the pronunciation, the vocabulary, and the grammar of the story. You know, when you're just listening or watching or reading for fun, then you don't really pay attention to all of those small details. But when you know that you're going to have to repeat it to someone else, you think about how they said the phrases that they said, and you think about how certain sentences were written. You think about the rules that were used to create those sentences, and you think about special situations or phrases that people said that maybe you didn't understand very well and you need to go look them up, because that's going to help you understand when you're supposed to use them too. If you're never going to use the thing that you've learned, it feels like a waste of time. So your brain kind of switches off and doesn't want to pay attention. Tip number 6 about how to use stories to learn English is to look for stories that have audio options and video options. If you can incorporate more of your senses and more of your abilities into learning this story and experiencing this story, then it's going to help you improve your English much more. Plus, it's much easier to remember something when you can see the picture in your mind, or you can hear the voice in your head. It helps you understand the pronunciation that was used. It helps you understand the flow of the language and how one phrase was connected to another. Some language learning resources have text that you can read, video that you can watch, and audio that you can listen to, and choosing those different options is really, really good for you and the whole learning process. Because you can switch between them, and you can listen to just the audio when you're taking a shower or driving your car, and when you're sitting down, relaxing, maybe even while you're eating dinner, you can watch the video version, and then you can sit and read the text version when you have time to do that too. And that's very similar to tip number 7, which is use different formats of this information. Again, you're trying to put this information into multiple senses. So if you can see it, you can hear it, and you can touch it, then you're going to remember it much better than if you just use one of those senses. Plus, different people learn better using different formats. There are even other people who learn better by doing, and they need to write something down in order to remember it, or they need to do an action together with this new information in order to learn it. And that way, their brain remembers what happened when they were doing that action. So you might be someone who learns better with their eyes, with their ears, or with their actions, and you need to understand which one of those you are, and the only way to find out is by trying different formats. We are so lucky today with the technology that we have because you don't have to only read a book. You can also watch a film. You can also watch a TV show or a cartoon. You can listen to an audiobook. You can listen to a podcast. You can watch a YouTube video. Don't forget to subscribe. You can read journals, magazines, articles. The opportunities are endless. So find the format that works best for you and use that. But make sure to try multiple formats because different types of formats will introduce you to different types of vocabulary, people speaking in different ways, and people presenting information in different ways. And that's very important. You need variety. Which brings us to tip number 8 about how you can use stories to improve your English. You need to find a variety of sources. If you always listen to the same person talk about the same thing over and over, then you might be able to copy them word for word. You might be able to say exactly what they said in the same way that they said it, but that's only good for one special situation, when you meet someone who's talking about that specific topic. In life, we have more than one topic. We have so many things that people speak about and so many different areas of knowledge that we need to develop. And that's why it's important to listen to, watch, or read multiple people, not just one. I know you're probably thinking, but Chris, I only want to watch your YouTube channel. Well, thank you, but you should also watch other people's YouTube channels, and you should also read other people's websites, and you should also watch other people's films, and you should also listen to other people's podcasts. You should find a variety of different sources because people speak about things in different ways, with different styles, different vocabulary, and different accents. Not to mention that they have different perspectives on the world. So we need to compare tip number 8 and tip number 1. Tip number 1 says that you should find stories that you're interested in, but tip number 8 says you need to find other stories too. Don't just read, watch, and listen stories that you're interested in from one person. Try to find other topics that you might also be a little interested in and learn about those too. You need to learn about different topics from different people in different formats. Because using stories to improve your English is a very effective method that you can use every day, and it's very inexpensive. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a great way to grow your language skills. Now I'm going to read you a story, and I want you to listen to it, try to understand the vocabulary, the words, and the phrases, and I'm going to include some new ones that you probably haven't heard before. Also, under this video, I'm including a link to a blog post on my website where you can read the words of the story while listening to this video. And I've also included some explanations of the target vocabulary, the vocabulary that I want to teach you through this story. So right now I'm going to flip the screen around and read you the story, but make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss future videos just like this one. All right, let's get started. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a beautiful princess named Azalea. Azalea was renowned for her intelligence and compassion and was loved by everyone who knew her. However, Azalea's life was turned upside down when her father, the king, fell gravely ill. The royal physicians tried everything in their power to heal the king, but nothing seemed to work. One day, a mysterious healer arrived at the castle, claiming to have a cure for the king's illness. The healer was a peculiar man with a strange accent and a bag full of exotic herbs and potions. Despite their skepticism, the princess and the royal court decided to give the healer a chance. To their amazement, the healer's treatment worked, and the king made a full recovery. The kingdom rejoiced, and the healer was hailed as a hero. Azalea, grateful for the healer's help, asked him to stay at the castle as the new royal physician. The healer agreed, and he and Azalea became close friends. As time passed, Azalea and the healer grew closer, and it wasn't long before they fell in love. The princess and the healer were happy together, but they knew that their relationship would not be accepted by the royal court and the kingdom. They decided to keep their love hidden and meet in secret whenever they could. One day, a member of the court caught the princess and the healer together, and they were forced to flee the kingdom. They left behind their old lives and started anew in a distant land where they lived happily ever after. The princess and the healer never forgot their homeland, but they knew that as long as they had each other, they could face any challenge that came their way. They lived a simple but fulfilling life, helping those in need and spreading joy wherever they went. And so, the princess and the healer became known as the hidden heroes of the kingdom, their love and bravery inspiring generations to come. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked that story. I hope you liked the 8 tips about how you can use stories to improve your English and to grow your language skills. Please press like on this video, subscribe to this channel, and click that bell button so you get notified when new videos come out, and so you get notified when we go live and you can have speaking practice with us, because we have live speaking practice 3, 4, 5 times every day on our website. You can find the link to that program under this video too. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.